Hi everyone, for those of you guys that don't know me, my name is Benjamin Nowak, and for those of you that do, thank you and welcome back to my channel. If you're not already, hit that subscribe button down below because I post a ton of fishing content here on YouTube. Now, this video here is focused on the functionality, setup, and use of your Panoptix Garmin Fishing Ice Bundle. So by making this video, by watching this video, I'm assuming you know what the Panoptix Ice Bundle is. I'm assuming you either have it or are interested in it, and if you don't know what it is, I'll leave a link to a video where I explain what it is, why I use it, and how I use it to help me catch fish. But this video is very solely focused on setting it up, identifying fish, identifying structure, identifying your bait, so you can be more effective on the water. So what I'm going to run through now is the setup of this unit, how I set up the Panoptix functions on this graph to make it work. How do you switch it between live view forward and live view down? How do you set those up? What do I use so that way I can identify fish, structure, or depth changes to be effective on the water? I'm not going to focus on the traditional ice transducer. That is this transducer here, the traditional cone-shaped transducer. I'm not going to focus on that in this video. If you guys want to see that, it's a pretty standard feature on most ice fishing units. So this is only going to focus on the Panoptix portion of this graph. So one thing you're going to notice out of the box is that there's only one Panoptix setting, and I know that seems a little bit odd and actually threw me off at first. The way you get it to change from either live view down to live view forward is just change the angle of the transducer on your stick. So all you're going to do is change the angle of that transducer, and your graph is automatically going to adjust. So if it's pointed down, you have live view down. If it's pointed forward, and no, I don't turn it directly 90 degrees, slightly off, one click off, it's going to change it to live view forward for you. So live view down, straight down. Live view forward is just one click off from parallel from the stick. Then you're going to drop it down the hole. Your graph's going to recognize that and change from live view down to live view forward or vice versa for you. The screen you're looking at now is the live view down screen. This is a screen that I'm using anytime that I'm actually using the transducer in the ice hole to identify my bait and fish down below me. We're going to run through the settings that I use and how I set my graph up to be most effective with the live view down features. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into the menu, and I'm going to show you what I run. So the gain is very interesting. The gain that I use actually depends on the depth and the water clarity that I'm fishing. The first thing that I do is go to enable auto gain, and I set it to auto medium. Now why do I do this? Because it's going to get me pretty close, but what that's going to do is if I leave it on that setting, my gain is going to change depending on where my jig is at in the water column. And I know that sounds a little bit silly, but the most effective way that you can set this up is by dropping a jig down the hole, getting it on bottom, and adjusting it slightly so that the jig looks relative to size. But I'm going to typically go over and adjust the gain up and down to kind of clean up some of this noise over here, so there's not too much clutter on the screen. What I had my gain set at before was 71. That gives me the clearest, cleanest picture of both my jig, fish on the graph, as well as everything else down underneath the water. I'll toss in a clip here of us actually fishing, what you want your jig to look like, what you want your fish to look like. What you're going to see in this first clip is my jig coming up right to the left of center line there. And then you're going to see that fish push in and come up and inspect my bait. He's going to look at my bait a little bit. I'm going to jig him up and try to get him to come up before he ends up pushing out the right side of the screen after looking at Mitch's bait. The second clip here, what you're going to see is I'm going to be jigging my bait to the left there. A fish is going to push in at about 5 foot to the right of the hole. As this fish pushes in, he's going to look at Mitch's jig, spend some time checking out what Mitch is jigging up, and then I'm going to make some aggressive jigs. I'm going to pull my bait about 1.5 feet, 2 feet off the bottom, and that fish is going to shoot over to my bait, which he's doing right now. As this fish is looking at my bait, you're going to see a fish flash in the screen right to the left of that little hump. As soon as that happens, that fish is just going to slide along the bottom and slide out of that transducer cone and basically be gone from this clip. In this final clip, all it really is Mitch and I jigging our baits. Nothing really crazy, just wanted to show you guys what our jigs looked like on the graph. Kind of giving you guys an idea of what the graph is looking like. It's showing that we come up to about 10 foot on the left side of the screen. We're sitting right on top of a steep drop. So 10 foot on the left side of the hole, about 14 foot right to the right side of the hole, And the cone actually shoots out about 10 feet to each side of the hole. The cone, the transducer angle is actually covering about 10 foot of bottom to either side of that transducer there. The range, I typically leave at auto. This is going to give me the best setting to keep track of the bottom without giving me too much extra space below the bottom of that reading. So I'm going to leave that at auto. And then really that's basically all that you need. You can change your colors in here as well. I like the blue color scheme. I like the trails on. You're going to be able to see if fish are moving in and out of the screen because you're going to have a pink trail behind those fish. The grid overlay I like as well because it makes it very easy to identify the depth or distance away from the hole that your bait is, that the fish are. Bottom fill I leave off, and scroll history I like to show as well. That's that sidebar. That's essentially your traditional 2D sonar. And then color gain I leave at default. That's all there really is. These are the settings I have for my overlay numbers if you want to match those, but that's really preference. So in the live view screen, this is what live view is going to look like. You notice with live view down, you had the angles through the middle there that showed you to each side of the hole. Well, this live view forward, this is where your transducer is, up here in the left-hand corner, shooting forward. So this is out in front of wherever this stick is pointing. So you're going to be able to adjust where that transducer is pointing, and then that's out from wherever the transducer is pointing. So if I spin the stick, if I change the direction that that transducer is pointing, you're going to notice the bottom change. Where I'm sitting right now is on the edge of a steep drop. So when I spin the transducer back towards shore, you're going to notice right here that there is a very, very, very steep drop right directly where I'm sitting towards the shoreline. As I continue to spin that, you're going to notice the bottom change again because, well, the composition of the bottom and the bottom changes. So it comes up shallow. There's some grass on top of it. There's some grass right there. This here is grass. Then it levels out, it gets more flat. There might be a little grass here, but for the most part, down here there's pretty much nothing. It's a mud bottom, maybe a tiny bit of grass coming up, but it's pretty flat. Taking a look at my live view forward settings, we're going to go into the menu now and start with the gain. Similarly to the live view forward, we're going to start out with enable auto gain, then I'm going to change it slightly. So if we go over here, it's going to adjust a little bit for me, but there's a little bit too much grain in the screen, so we're just going to bring this down until some of this interference kind of goes away. So like 81 or 82 is a pretty good setting. You get maybe just a tiny bit right there, but for the most part that's pretty good. That's pretty much how I like it. Very, very clean up here in the water column. What I'm really focusing on is down here, and if there are fish swimming through the screen, you're going to notice them. They're going to be big red blobs, which I'll show you guys here in just a little bit. So we're going to go back. The depth range I leave at auto. I don't want this bottom fixed, so if I change depths, I don't want to have to come in here and change this all the time. I'm going to leave that bottom depth range at auto. For forward range, I'm going to set it at 80 feet. This is where I get the clearest picture. This is where I'm able to really see bait fish up in the water column. I'm able to see fish up in the water column. I'm able to identify bottom changes. 80 feet is where I like to have this set. Some people are going to go further out. Some people are going to like it set a little bit closer in. But for me, 80 feet is that magic number. Play around with this and find where you get your best picture. As we go into Sonar Setup, again, appearance, you can change the colors if you'd like. These are the settings that I have if you'd like to adjust your settings to similarly as mine. And then overlay numbers again. If you want my overlay settings, these are what those overlay settings are. To give you guys an idea of what the bottom changes look like on Live View Forward, I'm going to just kind of lock it on this screen for you, turn the stick around, and explain what I'm seeing on the bottom. This is something that I've developed a little bit of confidence in, especially using it on my boat, is identifying items or objects with Live View Forward. So as we spin the stick, you're going to notice the bottom change. It's pretty flat, even though there's a little depression here. You have to take that with a little bit of grain of salt, just the way the transducer is. But overall, it's pretty flat until we come back towards the shore. You're going to start to notice it come up as we point it basically straight by us, straight behind us, because we're along that break. So it comes up just a little bit. There might be a little bit of grass up on top here as we get a little bit closer to shore. And what we're on right now is a very, very, very steep drop. So this here... we're sitting here in 12 or 13 feet. It comes up really hard. So 20 feet out from this pipe here, from where this is pointing, it's going to come up really shallow. It's about 8 feet deep. And I like the grids for this reason. You can really tell 40 feet, you're at about 4 feet. And there's some grass up on here. So this stuff coming up, this is not interference. This is grass. This is something in the water column. It might be debris, but for the most part, you want to be able to see that, because if you turn this and you notice it out here in 15 foot, you're going to see grass. You're going to see things coming up off the bottom. Fish, I'm not in an area where there are a ton of fish right now. Fish would be a red blob like this color here coming up through the water column. They're going to be swimming, they're going to be moving. Whether it's bait fish, they're going to be high up. If you guys like to fish for crappie, that's what this is really good for. Crappie, bluegill, panfish. You're going to notice them up in the water column. And then you can identify how far away and go drill a hole in that direction. But that's what this is really useful for, is finding those fish suspended up or tight along the bottom. They'll look like bumps if the bottom is really, really flat. But for the most part, as I spin the transducer, you can kind of get an idea of the area I'm fishing. There's a little bit of grass. There's a hard, steep drop here, and then it comes up by shore, just like that. So we're sitting right on the edge of that drop before it turns into just a big flat. So everyone, I hope they gave you a great look at Garmin Panoptix. Hopefully it helps you dial that unit in so you can go out on the water with confidence, catch fish, and put more fish on the ice. It's going to help you identify fish, drill less holes, and hopefully catch the biggest fish of your life. If you guys are interested in checking out or purchasing the Garmin Panoptix Ice Bundle, if you could do me a huge favor, I'm going to leave a link down in the description below that will help me out. If you go to that page, if that's where you choose to purchase your Garmin Panoptix Ice Bundle from, it will help me out tremendously. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, take care. Tight lines. God bless.